The aforementioned minutes are hereby deferred.
Announcements by Your Honor, the Speaker. Messages from Her Excellency the President, petitions, papers, government notices, private members' notices, notices of questions, reports from select committees, first readings of bills, statements by ministers, congratulatory and/or obituary speeches, personal explanations, motions for leave of absence, oral replies to questions, notices of motions for the adjournment of the House on matters of urgent public importance, orders of the day.
Honourable Leader of Government Business.
Mr. Speaker, I beg to move the suspension of Standing Orders 6, 16, 18, 20, 42, subsection 5, 43, and 44 for the remainder of the day's sitting.
Questions that the aforementioned standing orders be suspended for the remainder of the day sitting. All those honourable members in favor, please say aye. Those against, please say no. We think the ayes have it. The aforementioned standing orders are hereby suspended for the remainder of the day sitting.
Government business. Order number 10, sir. In the name of the Honourable Minister of Finance, to move the second reading of the Appropriation Bill 2025.
Mr. Speaker, I beg to move that you do not leave the chair and that the House resolve itself into Standing Finance Committee for further consideration of the bill and the schedules thereto.
The question is that the Speaker do not leave the chair and the House resolve itself into Standing Finance Committee. All those honourable members in favor, please say aye. Those against, please say no. We think the ayes have it.
This Honourable House is now in Standing Finance Committee.
Mr. Chairman, Head 30, Attorney General, in the sum of $158,336,959.
Member for Honourable Attorney General.
Mr. Chairman, I seek the leave of the Chamber to allow the various heads of departments under my ministry to join me in the Well of Parliament together with the Minister of State.
Good morning, all honorable members. Morning, staff and members of the Attorney General. We'll proceed into standing Finance Committee, but before we do, we have the opening remarks from the Honorable Attorney General. I will outline the rules, standing orders related to these sessions. The Honorable Attorney General will first give his opening remarks for 10 minutes, and he will be followed by the Honorable Leader of the Opposition for equal time. Then those members of staff of the Attorney General's office will be engaged at the direction of the Attorney General. What I want you to do is first state your name and the office which you hold, your position, before you begin to speak. And you do this, I'm advised for the purpose of Hansard, do this whenever you speak. Honorable members, given to raise questions. Questions to the Attorney General is 3 minutes. Thereafter, you're allowed 3 supplementary questions, 3 related questions. Let me make that absolutely clear. Questions to the Attorney General should not exceed 3 minutes. Thereafter, you are given 3 supplementary questions, 3 related questions to the subject matter, and Minister, the Attorney General has 5 minutes, and he may identify any members of his team to speak, and you are allowed 3 minutes. Respond. Thank you, Honorable Attorney General. You may give your opening remarks.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Permit me at the outset to thank the members of my team. The heads of those departments are here. But by my team, I'm referring to all of the officers who work under the purview of the Office of the Attorney General and the Ministry of Legal Affairs. The last year has been a year of a lot of successes. It has also been a year where we've been beset by a few challenges. The estimates this year reflect a commitment to do better in every instance than we've done before, but also, Mr. Chairman, to reach new heights as we deal with the various matters under our purview. To remind members of the Chamber, the Office of the Attorney General covers the Office of the Director of Public Prosecutions, Community Legal Services, the Law Reform Commission, the Law Revision Office, the Office of the Chief Parliamentary Counsel, the Registration Department, the Supreme Court, Criminal Justice Research Project, the Forensic Sciences Center, the Design and Implementation Unit, and the Barbados Police Service. Mr. Chairman, this year, my ministry will benefit from an allocation of funding in the amount of $248,454,305. Of this amount, $158,336,959 is the non-statutory portion, and to remind members of the Chamber, the statutory portion relates to wages, salaries, and the like. Well, the non-statutory portion are those discretionary amounts which are voted by the Parliament, and those are the amounts that will be spent by all of these departments on the various work programs. That amount does not include the DPP. The DPP's now statutory allocation is $1.857 million. Of this $248+ million, the Barbados Police Service, not surprisingly, receives the lion's share of our allocation, just about $170 million. I think if members took the trouble to go through the estimates over the last few years, you would see that on every year, year on year, larger and larger allocations are made for the police service. I think that it's important here for me to thank especially the members of the police service for working tirelessly and delivering for the people of Barbados time and time again. This is Aldous Huxley wrote a book, I think, called A Brave New World. Perhaps in many respects, this is a brave new world for us. Every day, members of this chamber and the general public will see situations on social media where individuals test the resolve and the commitment of the Barbados Police Service. When we were all growing up, a policeman was a person to be respected. A policeman was a person to be feared. Mr. Chairman, I grew up in Parish Land, St. George, and as a boy, not me, because my parents did not allow me, but we had scooters. And you know that the scooters were up and down the road. You only had to hear the word police, and every man jack will snatch up his scooter and run through behind somebody's house, nearest cane ground, whatever it was, because police were feared and respected. Today, you witness on social media situations where people are openly combative and disrespectful to the police service. That is the milieu in which they operate today, and that is why we have to be thankful for their commitment. More now than ever, when a police officer goes on duty, he does not know what will confront him, and in the worst of instances, he has to ask himself, will I make it back home to my family and my loved ones today? This unprecedented commitment to the police in terms of $170 million, and generally the unprecedented vote that is being given to the Ministry of Legal Affairs and the Office of the Attorney General, underscores the commitment given in our covenant of hope. This chamber, both sides of it, well remember the covenant of hope which the Barbados Labour Party presented to the country and published in 2016. In that document, we committed to the people of Barbados that the first call on public resources would be for the maintenance of law and order, security, and public safety. This budget underscores that commitment. This budget underscores the work that we've done since coming to government in 2018 and the increasing value and importance that we place on this first bullet in our covenant of hope. Mr. Chairman, we also echoed a similar commitment in our 2018 manifesto when we, again, both sides of this chamber, set out our plan for citizen safety and well-being. And in that 2018 manifesto, we set out a multi-pronged plan ranging from the appointment of 2 additional temporary judges to clear the backlog of the courts and the criminal system, Made proposals then for dealing with morale in the police service. We talked about reducing the number of firearms in the hands of criminals. We talked in that manifesto about working with churches and NGOs in the fight against crime. Mr. Chairman, we discharged those responsibilities ably. We met the commitments made to the people of Barbados. And in every year on year, we have doubled down. I begin here, Mr. Chairman, because I feel it is important to go back to the period before when we were in government to set the context for what we have been doing and what we're doing now, what we propose to do for the next financial year. When we say that government is a continuum, we also should make the sister statement that governance is a continuum. It is important, Mr. Chairman, to go back to these things to make it clear that we recognize from when we were back in opposition, both sides of this chamber, that there were some serious issues in terms of law and order that we were facing. Back then, Mr. Chairman, the storm clouds were not on the horizon, sir. The storm clouds had already reached our shores. I can refer this chamber to a front page Nation story in October of 2015. 10 years ago. When the then Commissioner of Police informed the public that there was a serious problem with guns coming into the country through our ports of entry, especially the seaport. It wasn't we who said it. We were not in government at the time. We were in opposition. And it was said by the Commissioner of Police. And in that news story, he pointed out that there was an abundance of high-caliber weapons and large quantities of available ammunition on the streets. That's what he said in 2015, that there was not a few, not one here or there. His words were that there was, in 2015, an abundance of high-caliber weapons and large quantities of available ammunition on the streets. And he expressed his concern then that the weapons were being smuggled into Barbados through legitimate ports of entry. And he continued to point out that what worried the police more was that many of the young men involved in the feuds, in the reprisal shootings, in the daily battles, refused to cooperate with police officers when they were shot because they preferred to exact their own revenge. And this tale was repeated by the Commissioner in 2016 and 2017, and perhaps it has been repeated by every Commissioner since then. Mr. Chairman, despite this dire warning, absolutely no corrective measures were taken. And when we came to government 2 years later, we found that the Barbados port had no functioning scanners, and that those scanners that were there had ceased to function for quite some time. In other words, guns were coming in through the port, but instead of plugging that hole, this scandalous situation at the port was allowed to persist until we came to government and put it to rest. In the MF program, Mr. Chairman, we spent many millions of dollars to purchase new scanning capacity for the Barbados port. The fact, though, is, Mr. Chairman, that all the while guns were coming in. And the very commissioner at the time reflected that the police service, had no way of knowing how many guns were already on our shores. Mr. Chairman, between 2021, January, and the end of last year, December 2024, the police service seized 359 firearms. You can applaud for that. 359 firearms were taken off of the streets, out of the hands of criminals. But as I said, because the guns were coming in illegally through our ports of entry, we have no idea how big a dent that number 359 represents. And we know, sir, that guns don't very rot. They last long. It's not like many other commodities. Mr. Speaker, let us get a few things straight, though. None of us in this government have been engaging in the business of blame. I only mention these things to set a context and to demonstrate how we got where we are. Our job, Mr. Chairman, and the job that we've not shirked from, not shied away from, is to take action and to deal with it. This crime situation did not arise overnight, and it will not be resolved overnight. It took decades to get here, and I hope that we can get out of it before plural. In other words, it will take some time, but I don't anticipate that it'll take us decades. But we know through human existence that the more serious the problem is, the more concerted the effort must be, and the more time it will take to wrestle it to the ground. Our crime situation is a serious problem, and it will take a serious effort, and it will take time. So for all of those who think that there's a magic wand to be waved, please think again. What I do know, though, is that we, as a country, are up to the task. The situation isn't dire, but it is serious. And Mr. Chairman, it is not a problem of those people or that person or the person over there or behind here. It is our problem. And it is a problem that must be tackled at multiple levels. It must be tackled by multiple players at the same time. The gun-toting vagabonds did not all of a sudden start to exhibit this kind of villainy a day in November or a day in August. They didn't start that way. They weren't born that way. So let us understand that we, all of us, need to begin by starting to fix the problem in the homes, in the schools, in the communities, on the streets, in the buses, in the minivans, at the bus stop. Every place that we have an opportunity to help to guide, advise, and correct somebody going wrong, it is our solemn obligation to do so. The role of government, Mr. Chairman, is severely circumscribed. We don't reach into people's homes. We will not shirk in passing any laws. We will not shirk in equipping the police, and we've not. But we cannot legislate morality. We cannot legislate respect for life or property. We cannot legislate against callousness. We cannot legislate decency and kindness and respect and thoughtfulness into the bosoms of any Barbadian. These are not values. These are not values that can be inculcated by governments. These are values that have to be inculcated in human beings through human interaction. The point is, sir, that we all have a stake in this. We all have a role to play in making Barbados a safer place. We all have a role to play in turning our young men and women away from criminal actions. I've begun by talking about crime in a very general way. I've admitted up front it is serious. But let us look at some numbers, because there has been an undeniable progression in the number of homicides over the years, and with it a progression in the use of firearms. In 1987, Mr. Chairman, we had 24 homicides, one less than we did last year, if you can believe that. Not last year, year before, 2023. In 1987, we had 24 homicides. Guess how many were by firearms? 2. 2 were by firearms. The following year, we had 21 homicides, but by then, 6 were by firearms. In 1990, we had 30 homicides, 5 by firearms. By 1999, Mr. Chairman, we had 23 murders and 9 were by firearms. In 2001, 25 murders, 10 by firearms. The next year, we had the same 25 murders, but by that time, 15 were caused by shootings. Are you seeing the trend? And so the crime has continued. More homicides each year and a greater percentage caused by firearms, so that last year, 2024, we had 49 murders and 34 were by firearms. I see your signal, sir. Let me just wind up and allow allow us to get into the meat of the matter. So, Mr. Chairman, we've committed a lot of our resources and we've done a lot of projects, we've done a lot of things that were novel. We've had regional symposiums because they keep saying this is a Barbados problem, but it is not a Barbados phenomena. It is a phenomena that has taken over the entire region, and we've been looking at it in a regional way. Mr. Chairman, one of the innovative programs that we have done is to allocate an amount in our budget, perhaps not as much as it could be, for a crime prevention program. This program was started 2 years ago in response to exactly what I just described, a climb in the number of homicides, particularly caused by firearms. And I've just given you some of those numbers. But there was also other intelligence made available to us, which underscored the need to make other and perhaps novel interventions so as to help to cut down on the number of homicides and the illegal use of firearms in our country. Mr. Chairman, the peace program, the National Peace Program, was conceived as such. Let us be clear. Barbados is a small society, a small country. There are no fences or walls high enough to quell the contagion of crime. People who live in Highgate Gardens don't have a fence or a wall high enough to keep crime out. We therefore need to reach into our communities and attempt to show individuals who are either involved in crime or about to become involved in crime that there's a better way. We have to entice individuals away from the apparent attractiveness of the gun and the gang culture. This kind of initiative was recognized by our heads. But the point is, sir, that even with the best of law enforcement, we have to find ways to engage with those involved in criminal activity and those who may be attracted to criminal activity to provide them with options. Mr. Speaker, every time we speak, we say the churches have to get involved with the criminals. We say the NGOs have to get involved in trying to steer criminals away. Everybody has to do it. So why not the government? We have to do it too. In fact, historically, Mr. Chairman, there were some government departments, like the Ministry of Public Works, that was seen as the employer of last resort for individuals with criminal past. This stemmed from a recognition that if we do not give those individuals on the fringes of society an opportunity to lift themselves out of crime, we'll be leaving them to become further entrenched in that lifestyle. Accordingly, in 2022, the member for the city, sitting to my right, was appointed Minister of State in the Office of the Attorney General with the responsibility for the administration of the Crime Prevention Program. Part of the Crime Prevention Program is referred to as the National Peace Program, and it seeks to provide opportunities for our young men and women to find another way of life, to engage in wholesome activity, to settle disputes without recourse to violence. And we'll talk about those programs in greater detail. But, sir, bear me 1 second. Yeah. And we've been able to make progress on a number of fronts. We've had some very good, we've had some success stories. We've had over 1,900 parents completing a parent-wise community parenting program, 160 high-risk young people completing the 8-week Flip Your Script program. We had 23 violence interruption interventions, of which 15 were successful. And added to these have been financial support for a number of NGOs the King's Trust, St. James Methodist Church, the Boy Scouts Association, Crime Stoppers, and others. Mr. Chairman, though, the fact is that as much as we've made successes, this is a new program. And as is to be expected with new programs, there have been a few mistakes, as well as things that could have been done better. In one instance, funds were used for a project where a few of the persons were still involved in criminal activity. And when I, as Attorney General, became aware of this fact, I immediately put a stop to it. And after consultation with the Prime Minister, we determined that a greater level of scrutiny on all projects needed to be implemented to make sure that all programs, while satisfying our imperative of diverting individuals from a life of crime, had to reflect first a willingness of the persons to change behavior and then to meet a minimum standard of probity. Mr. Chairman, this essentially follows an approach taken by some Caribbean nations, but for us, the guiding principles were those that we found in Chicago, where the former Secretary of Education for Barack Obama, Mr. Arnie Duncan, led an anti-violence NGO called CRED, Creating Real Economic Destiny, that set out to give predominantly gang members a chance at diversion from guns and gangs. They recognize that in reducing gun violence, the individuals most at risk are not really the problem, but they're also the solution. And that given the particular limited geographical locations associated with gun violence in Chicago, it was recognized that a broad stroke citywide policy would not work. It had to be a highly targeted place-based strategy. Their philosophy and work has been one of the guides for our own work, given their novel nature and given the novel nature of challenges for Barbados. All projects are now considered by an evaluation committee. They go through then the Minister of State, and now they come to me for my sign-off for submission to the National Security Council. They make the ultimate decision. This sometimes results in delay in approvals, but the extra layers of oversight have and will continue to redound to ensure that the work program is efficiently executed. I will stop there, Mr. Chair, before you penalize me, and I look forward to getting into the specifics of our projects and our estimates. I'd like to move to this headstand part.
Honourable Leader of the Opposition, thank you, Mr. Honourable Attorney General. We now move to the Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
I'm obliged to you, Mr. Speaker, and good morning to all parliamentarians and to our guests. I expect that this Parliament will maintain the highest traditions, and that when an honourable chairman of committee expresses the rule that an address should be in 10 minutes, and further expresses that this leader of the opposition will be given equal time, that both aspects of that rule will be applied for the sake of absolute fairness in an exercise that is not intended for this Parliament, but an exercise that is intended to be disseminated among the citizens of this country, both here and abroad. The operative word in your earlier expression of the rules is that of equality of time. And my record indicates that the learned and honourable Attorney General spoke for in excess of half hour. I beg your pardon, in excess of 25 minutes. And I therefore expect that, Your Honour, if I come close to 10 minutes, you'll be happy, and that if I exceed 10 minutes, you will be fair. And I hope to do this in silence. Every time I speak, the same individual Permit me, Your Honor. When the learned Attorney General began, he used the language that his endeavor involves a commitment to do better. Students of language will remind the learned Attorney General that better is an adverb which bears relationship to two other words alternatively. When a gentleman says that his is a commitment to do better, he may be saying that he has done well, and that the word, the adverb as a comparative quality, moves from having done well to quote the learned Attorney General, a commitment to do better. I spoke of students of English, and a student of English would want to remind the Attorney General that there is the other possibility that that word better as a comparative quality may also relate itself to the word badly. I let the public judge as to whether this learned Attorney General and this government, in relation to the question of crime, has done well or whether it has done badly. The public is the judge. And so the public will judge, and so the public has judged. And so I also have judged. And the students of English and the students of language will want to remind this Attorney General, this learned Attorney General today, that the choice between the words well and badly are not equal choices in this Barbados today. In this Barbados of 2025 that has followed Barbados of 2024. The learned Attorney General referred to a book, A Brave New World. There's another book called Voice in the Wind. It is about a slave girl who lived under the Roman Empire. So that is my response to this brave new world, which the learned Attorney General promises. And that prevailing in this country may be a voice in the wind. There's a 7-year-old boy who walks to school every morning. That is a perilous walk. There's a 7-year-old boy who drives to school every morning. That is a dangerous drive. And by his own admission, we heard the learned Attorney General refer to homes and schools and buses and ZRs, and the learned Attorney General understands why he did that. And the learned Attorney General will probably now agree with me that a drive in the minibus or the bus or the ZR is now a dangerous drive. Were we doing well? And are we now doing better? Were we doing badly? And will we try to do better? I commend the latter comparative, that the endeavor is to do better because we've done badly. Because that 7-year-old child, whether he's walking through a country lane or an urban street, whether he's in a ZR or a bus, or his beloved mother's car, a stray bullet can meet him, that 7-year-old boy. And the government will say to you that government is not to blame for every incident of criminal wrongdoing. And I want to quote the learned Attorney General again. When he described certain miscreants in the words, and I quote, gun-toting vagabonds. That is the language of the learned Attorney General. And government may insist that it is not to blame. And that it is not to blame for those, and I quote again, gun-toting vagabonds. And that it is not to blame more particularly for every instance of a, and I quote, gun-toting vagabond pulling a trigger. I don't think the society is blaming government for every instance in which a gun-toting vagabond pulls a trigger. But what this society, this country is asking government to do is to accept its responsibility as a government with vast resources at its disposal, with a police department, a police service, which according to the learned Attorney General this morning, has dedicated to it the figure of $158 million. That is a heavy allocation. But let us not forget that there's a heavy responsibility, a heavy governmental responsibility that goes with that allocation. And therefore, if government resiles on the issue of blame, we do not blame you for these instances of violent criminal wrongdoing, but we ask this government to accept its responsibility. And we say that in the life of that 7-year-old boy in the country lane, on the urban streets of Barbados, in the ZR, in the minibus at the bus stop, according to the learned Attorney General, we ask this government to accept that it has probably not met its responsibility to give to that child, that innocent child, that precious child, the safety and security that this government must guarantee to that child. Whether, I say, he is in the home, on the streets, in the school, at the bus stop, and I'm quoting the learned Attorney General, wherever is that precious, vulnerable child, this government has a responsibility to ensure that he experiences a life that every person in this parliament experienced when we were at the age of 7. This is no brave new world. This is a dangerous new world. And I've heard enough of the structural prescriptions about we've appointed more judges. That is not a solution to the problem. And incidentally, Your Honor, that 7-year-old boy was born in 2018. And for every year of his life, apart from the period of lockdown, that 7-year-old boy has lived in a country in which a murder has taken place on average, if not once a week or once every 2 weeks, every month in this country that has lost its peace. So don't focus on blame government. Focus on responsibility. Has this government met its responsibility to that 7-year-old? Has this government met its responsibility to this country? This country knows the answer. Will there now be a dissonance between this country's answer and this government's answer? This country, here and abroad, has accused this government of ushering this country into the most violent period in its history, apart from the period of slavery. and therefore let me say post-1966. That our generation in this parliament has not seen a country like this before. Where's this government's responsibility? The appointment of 13 judges? That is not the solution. I have come to this parliament more than once, and I have expressed in humility what are the possible prescriptions, and when I was sitting over there, I did it to applause. I do it here in silence, but we call that partisan politics. We call it partisan politics. And the Attorney General, the learned Attorney General, did something here very strange today, akin to one of Barbados' well-known comedians. In the middle of his jokes, he used to say, you have to clap for that, and he did that, and there was applause. I've never seen this kind of thing in Parliament before. You demand applause and you get it. Hooray. But I say to this government to give us our children back. I say to this government, give us our peace back. I say to this government, give us our neighborhoods back. I say to this government, give us our peace back. Give us our streets back. Give us our peace back. Wherever humanity resides and wherever that 7-year-old boy goes on his walk, his worthy walk to school and home from school, what shall be his plight? A bullet? Should he understand now a life that we did not comprehend? That he is now caught in a vortex of crime, and that we reach a dangerous state in our lives when crime becomes cliched. It is something that is likely to happen. Has this government done enough to erase the cliche that is now crime in this country? I say no. But it is not my voice alone. This is not a voice in the wind. This is the voice of every Barbadian who lives constantly in fear, whether he's 7 or 70. Yet, we are not blaming the government. I return to the theme. We are asking the government to accept its responsibility. Crime, among the issues that confront this country, is the one of greatest urgency. And when we use the word better, that word is used in its comparative quality, its comparative sense, to the other word, badly. And if anyone doubts that assertion, take that person's memory back to the year 2024. I believe it has been a year of ignominious record. That our 7-year-old child saw a murder in this country every week. Possibly of the 52 weeks that constitute a year. This country has lost its peace. And this ministry of the Attorney General has highest responsibility in the restoration of that peace to this country, in the restoration of that peace back into the life of that precious 7-year-old boy. And you know, Your Honor, I did not expect that the learned Attorney General and the Honourable Member for St. Joseph would have made reference to a national peace program. And I give early notice that I'll be asking some questions on this national peace program. I will be. Take early notice. But I wrote what the learned Attorney General said about this national peace program. I asked the public to incline its ear closely to the language used by the learned Attorney General here this morning. Because unless language has meaning, it is wasted. And here's what the learned Attorney General told this country a few minutes ago in a 25-minute speech about that National Peace Program. That it is intended to attain to people involved in crime. It does not equivocate, Your Honor. And if there's any equivocation, the learned Attorney General said that it is intended to attain to people who are involved in crime or about to become involved in crime. Let us deal with the first of those categories. That we live in a country in which a government, through its principal legal officer, is saying to this country that it will attain, and more than attain, I assert that it will transact with persons involved in crime. And every right-thinking member of this society wonders now, what is the role of the Barbados Police Service? That we are catering to persons involved in crime. When I was 7 years old, and when you were 7 years old, Your Honor, and you're slightly younger than I am, that was not the business of the government. The police department was not placed on layoff or short time or made permanently redundant. Have we reached the stage in this country in which a government at official levels is entering into transactions with persons involved in crime? And this is a department of government that has supervision, daily supervision, constitutional supervision, legal supervision of the Barbados Police Service. And by open admission in the highest legislative body in this country, we hear an admission that a government is catering to persons involved in crime. And it was not said in its past tense. It was said in its present tense. We ask this government today, and I will ask this government in a few minutes, what is the nature and quality of that transaction with persons involved in crime? If the statement had been uttered in its past tense, I would have made reference to the noble scheme of rehabilitation. It is not a scheme of rehabilitation when the learned Attorney General uses it in its present tense. That there are persons out there in this country who are present tense involved in crime, and they have become beneficiaries of a transaction with the government. Let the people hear. Let the people understand. Let that 7-year-old boy who has a dangerous walk, a perilous walk to school, and from school back home, God help him to get there when a government is transacting with people who are involved in crime. What is the nature of that crime? Do they enter automarks? Do they enter the ZRs and misbehave in pursuit of their intended victim? Do they run across the country path gun-toting? Firing shots, is it on the football field? They are now vacant. Hemmed in as they are with hostile fences. And I will ask in future, I don't believe he's down to speak, but the Minister of Sport must give account to this country as to why our recreational areas in this country have suffered destruction under the guise of mini stadia. What mini stadia? What? This government has destroyed recreation in this country. But I come back to the question of crime. I come back to the 7-year-old boy who cannot walk to school and be guaranteed by this government that fails to meet its responsibility to him. This government cannot guarantee that 7-year-old boy born in 2018 a safe walk to school. And if he holds the hand of his 5-year-old sister who was born in 2020, the two of them are at the mercy of a most violent society. We don't blame the government. We ask the government to meet its responsibility. Where's your responsibility? In structures, in the appointment of judges, in the establishment of all kinds of fancy structures that bear no relationship to juvenile safety in this country. We've lived for this long, and it hasn't been luck. It has been a clear and distinct plan by previous governments to guarantee the safety and security of the citizens of this country. Where's that 7-year-old boy today? How much time have I spoken for, sir?
You have 3 minutes to wrap up.
You're very kind today, sir. As you always are. And so I say, I ask this government as I had started to ask, and every minister in here has a responsibility, give us our schools back. Give us our standards back. Give us our homes back, because I heard the Attorney General say that the government has no business in homes. I beg to differ. That statement was uttered in a previous dispensation during the debate for the passage of the domestic violence legislation. And it was a most unhappy statement. We have lived for many years after the domestic violence legislation to hear that the government has no business in the homes of people. That's not true. That's not true. Everywhere that humanity exists in this country, a government under the Constitution of this country that applies to every citizen and every behavioral aspect of every citizen is subject to the Constitution. And it is subject to the safety and security guaranteed by the Constitution, whether in the home or the hotel. Our pursuit must now be considered to be misconceived. But I pray for the safety of our 7-year-old son and his 5-year-old sister. That son born in 2018 and his sister born in 2020. What is their future? What is this government's prescription for their future? Give them their country back. Your Honor, I'm obliged to you.
Thank you, Honourable Leader of the Opposition. Honourable Member for St. James Central.
Thank you very much, sir. Mr. Chairman, I do not propose in the 3 minutes allotted to me to engage in the sophistry of good versus well versus better. I suffice it to say that I disagree vehemently with the views expressed by the Leader of the Opposition on any suggestion that the learned Attorney General has performed badly. I think, like most right-thinking Barbadians, it is appropriate to begin by congratulating the learned Attorney General and the police of Barbados for the work which has been selflessly done and the constant delivery of success on behalf of the people of this country in the interest of the security of the people of this country. Unlike the Leader of the Opposition, sir, I do not have early onset amnesia. And I think of the 17-year-old boy. I think of the 17-year-old boy born in 2008, sir, who was not unable only to walk a country lane, but unable to sit in a school bus because of stabbings taking place in school buses in Barbados in 2015 and in 2016 and in 2017, sir. I want to applaud the concerted efforts to address the morale of the Royal Barbados Police Force under the watch of this learned Attorney General. And I recall the deterioration of morale under a previous administration, where officers are overlooked for promotion, political intervention in the promotional system. Ironically, at the time, represented by none other than he who is now leader of the opposition in Barbados. And the 17-year-old boy would have witnessed that in the land of his birth. So let us not forget how we got here and the social context within which this Attorney General must function. Now, Mr. Chairman, I want to come to the question. The learned Attorney General referenced the seizure of 359 firearms, and again, for that, I believe he should be congratulated. And I feel strongly, Mr. Chairman, that the opportunity should be given to the Attorney General, I seek to do so now, to elaborate on the extent to which crime as a crisis is an issue not only here in Barbados, as it has been cast by the leader of the opposition, but that it is a wider crisis across this region. And I reference in particular headlines. Trinidad and Tobago is in a state of emergency even as we speak. 2023, I believe it was, CARICOM heads declared crime as a public health issue. The Parliament of this country cannot remain silent on these things. And I feel, sir, that I would want to hear from the Attorney General some form of elaboration on crime, not only as it impacts us as in Barbados, but as a regional issue, by extension impacting this country.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. The Caribbean, the countries in the Caribbean have been linked not just by sea, not just by the merchant class. In fact, I think you well remember when, I believe it was Arabara, who when the issue of regional integration came up, said that, that the region was already integrated by its higglers, people who were moving up and down from day to day, doing business unseen, but important business. That has been the nature of the coexistence of CARICOM states around the Caribbean Sea. But we'd be foolhardy to think, sir, that the criminals are not also doing the same thing. We have intelligence which tells us about the interconnection between criminal gangs in Barbados and in Jamaica, between criminal gangs in Trinidad and St. Lucia and Barbados. Individuals travel across the region, sometimes under the guise of music, other times under the guise of holiday, but we are always in a stance, sir, where we have to look to see how the criminal element is moving up and down our region. So let us begin by accepting that the connectivity between Caribbean states goes beyond legitimate business. It also exists for the purposes of doing illegal acts. Mr. Chairman, almost daily in Jamaica, one area of Jamaica or another is subject to states of emergency. The crime rate in Jamaica is huge. Of the countries in the region, in the world with the highest homicide rates, I believe CARICOM states account for about 6 out of 10 or 11. Now, that doesn't mean that the numbers are necessarily large, because percentages, will paint a different picture. But the fact is that all across this region we are seeing a significant rise in criminal activity, especially in relation to homicides. Little St. Lucia, with a population of 2/3 of Barbados, had homicides in each of the last 2 years that more than doubled our own homicide rates. The viciousness with which these homicides are committed is beyond compare, where even babies are shot dead in their cribs. We recognize, the leaders of CARICOM recognize that there had to be a different approach to crime fighting, and that to continue to do it in an insular fashion was not a recipe for success. Again, they're moving from Barbados to Trinidad, they're moving from Trinidad to Jamaica, and vice versa. So we can't operate in silos. But sir, let me say that this is not new, because when we were last in government, and I believe the Minister of Foreign Affairs would well recollect, as we prepared for the then Cricket World Cup, we set up a number of regional agencies, one of which is headquartered in Trinidad, but had to do with how the region treats with intelligence and intelligence gathering in relation to criminal activity. So those were the early stages. But the point is that it became imperative for the region's heads to sit together and grapple with what is this phenomena and how do we treat it. And so Prime Minister Rowley, who is the head, the CARICOM head dealing with law enforcement and security, hosted a symposium on treating violence and crime as a public health issue. That stems from the recognition, Mr. Chairman, that public health, the public health approach to violence and crime, is a systemic, multidisciplinary, evidence-based framework that seeks to understand, prevent, and mitigate violence and crime by addressing their societal, behavioral, and environmental determinants. So the point is that the same way that the public health officials dealt with AIDS, same way they dealt with COVID, let us apply those issues to how we address crime in the Caribbean. We've begun that work. There's more work to come. But the point is, this, as I said, this is not a Barbadian phenomena. This is a phenomena that is very present in every single country in the region that has seen a massive increase in its crime rates. Now, how do we deal with it? We have to deal with it collaboratively, and I'm surprised that the member, the leader of the opposition, takes such a siloed approach to the matter of law enforcement and dealing with crime. I'll come back to it, but he said that appointing extra judges is not a solution. It seems to me as though he operates on the basis that the only way to deal with crime is to go and find somebody to lock up. But what happens if you lock them up and the trial doesn't come in 10 years? What have you achieved? What is wrong, for example, with trying to make sure that you don't have to lock them up? That is, by getting into diversion programs and dealing with individuals where you find them. Mr. Chairman, to specifically finish addressing the issue of the Minister of Foreign Affairs, the work on the regional work continues. We had a meeting in Guyana only in November, and coming out of that meeting are a number of initiatives, but one of them proposes that we establish a sort of task force headed by a noted CARICOM jurist, and each country is going to contribute legal draftsmen, criminologists, and so on, and this task force really will be the crucible in which the strategies that the region adopts will be formulated. Let us remember, we don't produce guns. The guns that come into Barbados come from the United States. Same thing for Trinidad, come from the United States. Same thing for St. Lucia, same thing for Jamaica. So in the face of these kinds of challenges, we have to take a reasonable approach to it. But Barbados is not alone in this situation. what is happening in our country is being well seen, in fact, in many respects, to a greater degree in other countries in the Caribbean.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, as I listen to the Attorney General, I hear a voice of some maturity. I draw the contrast, quite frankly, with the voice of the Leader of the Opposition, from whom I hear simply lick and lock up. And I urge that the concept of lick and lock up done with resonate to some extent with the Leader of the Opposition. The Leader of the Attorney General quite rightly, I think, argued that there's a need to understand and prevent violence and crime by way of understanding and appreciating the systemic and multidisciplinary approaches which are related to it. I understand the learned Attorney General to be saying that we should, as a country, be addressing the societal, the behavioral, the environmental determinants of crime. And I recognize equally that there have been some social interventions on the part of the Office of the Attorney General, which I believe could be described as mechanisms that are holistic in nature, and they're designed to bring about a new approach or a fresh approach, a holistic approach to fighting crime, as opposed to simply lick and lock up. I would want to invite the Minister of State or the AG, whichever, to speak a little bit about the phases and the pillars on which this approach stands and the targets in particular of the National Crime Prevention Program, because I see the National Crime Prevention Program as one of those examples of a mature and responsive, holistic way of tackling the crime situation in Barbados, above and beyond simply lick and lock up, which seems to be the menu of options presented by the opposition in this place.
Thank you very much, Honourable Member. Through you, Mr. Chair. Good morning, colleagues. To answer your question directly, I would like to start by saying that in 2023, the heads of government declared crime as a public health issue in Trinidad. And if you're familiar with the public health approach, there is primary, secondary, and tertiary level. The same thing applies with crime prevention. Primary crime prevention speaks to addressing the deep social root causes of crime. That is things, Mr. Chair, like education, poverty, housing. And although the Office of the Attorney General is not responsible for that aspect, the government of Barbados is continuously working with our aggressive housing program, our education transformation, our One Family program. All of these are part of crime prevention. Not as sexy as other parts that persons tend to dwell on, but all of that is part of crime prevention. The secondary level of our secondary crime prevention speaks to those who are predisposed or on the periphery of crime. And that is where a lot of our work is targeted, to ensure that we get to persons before they become criminals. So as you said, Honourable Member, we don't have to focus on lick and lock up. And then, of course, there's the tertiary crime prevention, which really, in another word, is about rehabilitation and reintegration. And I have said from the beginning, and I continue to say, that unless we are going to execute every criminal or keep them in prison for life, we have to focus on rehabilitation because they're returned to this society where we live. And that is all part of the program for the National Crime Prevention Program. Now, to get specifically to answer your question, I want the members of the House and the public to know that there are 3 areas which we focus on, and that is intense empirical data collection called research, which is done by the Criminal Justice Research and Planning Unit. There is nothing willy-nilly about anything that we do. And if the director of the unit speaks today, you will see the intensity of the research that is done. Now, that research determines what we do, where we do it, how we do it, even down to when we actually do it. There's the area of policy, which is in its developmental stages, calling upon our criminologists and other criminologists to ensure that as we review the research, what type of policies need to be put in place and what type of programs need to be put in place. And then, of course, there is the program aspect, the one that we focus on a lot, because over the years, let's admit, there've been an underinvestment in our young people over the last couple of decades. And there've also been implementation deficit disorder, meaning that we could always do more and do better. Now, the National Peace Program is the part that focuses on the programmatic part of it, the action part of it. And that is where you get the pillars that you've asked about. We're not going to it in detail, but I can tell you what the pillars are. There's public awareness, there's national engagement, there's violence reduction, there's rehabilitation, reintegration, therapy and support, and there's a support pillar. Now, these pillars have been built again based on the research. What is the research telling us? The research is telling us that just like stigma and discrimination for HIV and AIDS, for cancer and all the different things, that there must be a raising of the awareness of people so that we have a more forgiving society. We have a society that doesn't want to believe in lick and lock up. So the public awareness is important. In terms of the criminal world, in terms of the at-risk world, in terms of the vulnerable world, there's a disconnect sometimes about that world and the other people. There needs to be an awareness on both sides of what is going on. That pillar deals with that. The national engagement deals with the sports, the tournaments that you've seen that are not just sports tournaments, but very targeted for reasons, again, coming out of the research, showing that certain communities need certain types of interventions. The national engagement goes way beyond sports, where we do our parenting programs, our family interventions, and various things. There's the rehabilitation, reintegration, therapy, and support, which is another important element where we do work with the Barbados Prison Services to ensure that we keep a check on the recidivism rate, those re-offending, those being re-incarcerated, and ensuring that if you understand that Barbados has a recidivism rate about 60%, it means that every 10 inmates that come out, 6 going back in. And if we fail to treat to that cohort, that is when we are not taking our responsibility serious. I beg to say. That is when we fail in our responsibility, if we fail to deal with that serious cohort. And then, of course, there's violence reduction, and I close on, Honourable Member, which really looks at different types of violence against the elderly, violence against children, violence in the schools, and the particular one that the Attorney General had to point out to this chamber, which is gun and gang violence. And as he said, we would have engaged Chicago CRED early as a government to look at what are some of the best practices out there. Now, we've not gone full hog like them. They go and they engage people, gang members, active gang members, where within our program, we have deployed Inspire Leadership Solutions to merely deal with those on the periphery, those not involved directly. Those involved directly, I want to make it clear to this House that I leave them at the discretion of the Barbados Police Service and the judiciary system. But we cannot ignore that segment of society. Now, I know my time is up, so I just want to make sure that I would have answered your question, Honourable Member.
I think you have, and I want to say to you that if there's, I'm going to invite you to elaborate further by way of another question. I want to say, first of all, that if there's one area in the intervention made by the Leader of the Opposition that I agree, or with which I agree, it would be when he said that everywhere humanity exists, government has a duty to offer protection. And I want to take your mind back to the same story of the 7-year-old, because as I listened to you just now, the underinvestment, I think that is how you put it, and I agree with that terminology, Honourable Member. The underinvestment in our young people through the years, that didn't just begin now. And let us look at the example of the 7-year-old raised only for political purposes by the Leader of the Opposition, because there have been many 7-year-olds. And as I said, we can look at the 17-year-old today. But let us look at that underinvestment and the programs which are now in place by this government, which many, I think, poo-poo or make light and make slight of. Reduce the laughter as a serious effort to intervene socially towards fighting the crime situation in Barbados. I raised specifically, for example, parenting programs, football programs. Can you elaborate for this House, please, on the benefits? And I want you to go slowly so that the Leader of the Opposition can take notes, so that you can illuminate the chamber on the benefits to be derived from programs such as this.
Thank you again, Honourable Member. I won't go too slow because I can see the chairman nodding at me every once in a while. He's on me and not you, so I have to go as quick as I can. But really and truly, let's get serious. In another life, you're in another hat, I used to do some Sunday programs. And every time those programs focused on social ills of this country, within about halfway through the program, we came down to one single thing every single time, and that was parenting. And the need to strengthen parents as a real, true, hardcore, sustainable, long-term crime prevention mechanism and social ill mechanism. I am proud to say that through the National Peace Program, but more so in partnership with a number of NGOs, namely the Paradox, I think people will be very familiar with those, Men's Organization, the Barbados Professional Association of Social Workers, CISL, which is really the Caribbean Institute of Social and Emotional Learning. These a lot with emotional intelligence, and Amar Empowerment, a Christian support group. They've been able to train and complete a parenting program with 1,904 parents in this country. 1,904 parents in this country between the 4th of May last year and the end of November. And that particular program, why I like it is that, as I have said, and I would encourage honorable members to take a look at the dailies on Friday, where a number of parents came out and gave their testimony of what the program has meant to them. And what the program aimed to do, like what this government has aimed to do and what this office has tried to do, is to be comprehensive and integrative, meaning that we look at all the different aspects of what I call the parenting pie, dealing with things like fatherlessness, co-parenting, technology in the age of parenting, parents that are incarcerated, and they went through an intense program with too many aspects to mention, too many areas to mention. There were 5 programs in 5 parishes every 5 weeks to make sure that we cover a broad span of parents, a wide cross-section, and that we get out there to make sure that these parents are better equipped, because the government cannot do it alone. The Barbados Police Service cannot do it alone. The schools cannot do it alone. The church cannot do it alone. Parents cannot do it alone, but we can help them in what they're doing, and we can all do it together, Honourable Member. And just quickly on the football, I think football has really been one of the easy marks for people, only because of the high publicity of it, because the matches were advertised. So people know of the football more so than the boxing and the different things. But with the football, it is not just football. There is Playing for Peace and the Love and Unity series, where we look at people who were once at war with themselves and war with others. They decided that they are at war no more. And we say, well, look, let me test it. Let me come together and let me play a match and let me break bread at the end. Let me roast some breadfruit and show that we are truly, and not pretending, that we are at peace. And this is how we talk about, we want to bring back the standards and we want to bring back the community. And I think that these are the ways to do it. Or at the VT time, we started in the north. One of the things that touched me, Honourable Member, and this is for all the members of the House. When we started that tournament, there were some balls and bats given to the communities, and people started to record themselves playing cricket in the gap again and sending to us. And those things touched my heart, because I probably came out in the latter part of the generation as I started going to childhood, that where those things came to an end. And if we can have them playing cricket and have them playing football and have them being engaged in social activity, that is less time and less motivation for them to be involved in criminal activity. And that is the motive behind those programs.
Mr. Chairman, I want to thank you, especially in the context of the ending of that, when it's very clear that the sportsmanship is returning to communities, and a little fencing around a playing field so as to enable you to earn a little $5 bill by people coming in to use the seating area enables the community to have a little more money. I'm obliged to you, sir.
Thank you, Honourable Member. Honourable Member for St. Michael North.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good morning to all members of the House and to the team from the Office of the Attorney General, and of course to the Attorney General and the Minister of State. I want to put on record my support and admiration for this team, this hardworking and dedicated team. There is no doubt, Mr. Chairman, that there are some things within our society that we could do better. There are some areas where we see concern, of course, as it relates to crime and seriousness of crime. And I believe that the Attorney General and the members of the Office of the Attorney General, in particular those of the Barbados Police Service, are exercising and demonstrating human service to our country in seeking to wrestle this particular issue to the ground. I know there's a tendency to focus on crime, but I understand a concept in business, which is you have to build a plane while flying it. And in many senses, a lot of the work that is being done by this phenomenal team is being unnoticed by the public. And it is a wider societal challenge that we have, Mr. Chairman, where persons tend to gravitate towards and focus on that which is negative and oftentimes overlook the many positive things that are taking place. There have been significant achievements by this team. There have been wonderful things that have been achieved and accomplished, and I think that they need to be celebrated and congratulated for that. I remember, Mr. Chairman, my first question, I remember there was a change in the very name of our police service. I grew up in a Barbados where it was always the RBPF, the Royal Barbados Police Force, and our transition to a republic also allowed an opportunity, and I don't think it was because we became the republic, but I believe that there is a wider effort, which is what I'm talking about, wider efforts that are being taken place across our government to deconstruct and reconstruct, to look at the way that we have done things over the years and where we can improve and enhance. We are making those efforts. And I believe that one such effort was the change of the name from the Royal Barbados Police Force to the Barbados Police Service. At that time, I believe it was mentioned that this was to demonstrate a reorientation of the service to become more citizen-centric. I would like to ask a question of the Attorney General and, of course, the Commissioner of Police and team, as he would designate. What have been the additional initiatives and efforts that have been undertaken by the Barbados Police Service to reorient it and to make it a more citizen-centric service to the people of Barbados? Crime fighting is one aspect, but there are so many other things, so many other elements and components to the work that these hardworking men and women do on a daily basis to ensure that peace and order and good governance is maintained within our country. So, Mr. Attorney General, what are we doing relative to the reorientation of the police service to change it from being that force that it was for many decades to being more of a service-oriented, citizen-centric tool within the makeup of the governance of our country?
Thank you. I'm going to allow the Commissioner to respond to that, but before I give him the floor, let me just say that we've had a few reflections on what policing used to be years ago. But that was a function of what Barbados used to be years ago. Isn't it funny how very often we want Barbados to be what it used to be in the 1970s and 80s, but we don't want to live the way we did back in the 1970s and 80s. We want all the benefits of a more tranquil, interactive, caring society, but somehow we want to live the way we're required to live in this current decade. When we transition from the police service, from the police force to police service, yes, it was because we got rid of the monarchy. But even before that, we have had to acknowledge that policing itself is very different. It isn't a well-known fact, but I think that of all of the professions in Barbados, the police officer has the worst health profile of anybody else. They don't like it, they don't want it that way, but that is hardly, sorry, that is, and to speak frankly, a function of how they work. Extremely long hours, tremendous amount of stress. Many days they barely get lunch, and if they get lunch, it's hardly something that they have time to sit down and enjoy a nutritious meal. So as we try to reorient policing in this decade, we have to reorient it not just for the public and how it serves the public. We have to reorient policing so as to better take care of the welfare of the police officers. I just wanted to put that there, and I invite the Commissioner to respond to you on the question.
Thank you, Chair. In response to the question first, my name is Richard Boyce, Commissioner of Police. And in terms of making the police service a more service-oriented organization, there are many steps which were taken to bring us into such where we are in terms of engaging the public and making the public feel safe and secure in our environment. And one thing for us that we look at our whole training rollout, how we train our officers to engage members of the public and all of the other stakeholders that we would come in contact with. So whether it is in the business community, whether it is in the school environment, wherever these persons are, we train our officers, and we train them also when it comes to interacting and engaging members of the public. And for us, we regroup and look at how our resources are deployed and whether or not each and every department is pulling the weight that we ask them to pull. And one glaring example which we engage to deal with members of the public and to get more persons in communities is that to relook the way we deploy members of the Barbados Police Service Band. So band members are one of the areas which we employed to get members into the community, have that facial contact, that engagement, and bring that level of camaraderie to members of the public and reassurance where the service is concerned and such a habit and high level of delivery. And for us, that has been working. And if I would just reflect on one of two communities which we are heavily engaging. We are in Haynesville, we are in Silver Hill, Silver Sands, the Pine, Beacons, and other areas that we need to have our presence felt. So for us, it have been a whole rollout of holding the hands of persons in these communities and reassuring them that we are their friends. There are times when we have to engage and probably arrest someone, but our approach, mind you, will be one of doing it in a humane manner so that members of the public would not be our enemies, but would be our brothers and sisters for one purpose, one common purpose. That is having persons settled in their homes and when they go fetting and such like, that person will feel safe and secure and see the police officers as not only a good Samaritan, but a friend for good. So that is how we operate in terms of dealing with our customer service and our community engagement. But we will continue on that path. We know we have some more work to do, and we'll identifying those persons that we mentioned so much this morning, the younger persons who are coming up through the system. And the aspect of crime. We're going to steer them away from the whole crime atmosphere, the criminal environment. And there's a particular age group now that we are working close with, hard with also, and that is persons between ages of 13 and 16. And why I mention that short span in terms of age when it comes to the young people is that we find that those are the persons now who we have to rein in and lend a brotherly helping hand to them and steer them away from getting involved in negative actions. So those are things which we are employing to make sure that we engage the public. And as you mentioned, we move away from an organization of force to an organization of customer service, where persons can see us as their port of call when it comes to issues which are niggling issues which are troubling them, and they want to bring some semblance of normalcy, quietness to their communities and homes. So that is how we are going about our work. Thank you.
I can also add that the police service is also involved in a number of other kinds of community-oriented activity. The commissioner mentioned the police band, but what he did not tell you is that part of the mandate of that kind of community involvement has been that they take music into our communities. The police band is well known the world over for its musicianship, the band members. And we recognize that having such an important resource available to us where officers can go into communities and not just walk around and talk, but can invite 2 or 3 of them and say, "Come, let me teach you how to play the clarinet." And therefore, additional instruments have already been ordered, and I'm not sure when they're going to get here, but additional instruments have been ordered for the police band, specifically for community outreach, so as to be able to get young men and women involved in the music industry. Something of value for itself, but also a skill that is really very therapeutic. And I speak as a musician myself. It has helped to calm me on many a difficult day. But they've also been involved as well with other entities like the King's Trust. So you will find that members of the Barbados Police Service are not out there every day trying to put handcuffs on people. They are also engaging our young people especially through either their own efforts or through the efforts of other NGOs such as the King's Trust. Another entity that has been funded also by the National Peace Program.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Attorney General and Commissioner of Police. It underscores that the point that you just made is what I was going to lead off with, that policing is not just about slapping handcuffs on individuals, but there's a wider and more comprehensive effort that is being undertaken on a daily basis by the men and women, the good, strong men and women, hardworking, dedicated men and women of our police service, to bring our society to a healthier place and a safer place. And it brought back to my mind as a reflection that I saw just recently that one of our nursery schools, the members of the police service went out on their horseback, they went out on their motorcycles, and they went out in their police vehicles to teach these nursery school students about transportation, different forms of transportation. And it was a blessing to me to see about 6 or 7 police officers interacting with our little children and trying to show them and teach them the way. I come to my second question very quickly relative to response times, relative to more sensitive matters. As a member of parliament, sometimes you have to interact, many times you have to interact with the best of times in persons' lives and sometimes the worst of times in persons' lives. And I have had occasion to interact with some of my constituents relative to sensitive calls for the police service, whether it is domestic abuse or other types of very unfortunate incidents. I would like to hear from the Attorney General and of course the Commissioner of Police relative to the training, specifically as it relates to sensitivity training in our force, as it relates to those more sensitive matters and calls. There has been, unfortunate, some level of concern within the society relative to how those types of matters are dealt with by the service, by the force as it was back then. And I would love to hear how we have been transforming. How have we been deconstructing or reconstructing that particular area, responding to sensitive matters within our society? And in addition to that, and maybe as a part B to that, we talk a lot about crime, but I know that this police service is very effective at solving crime as well. So whilst we highlight the fact that there are crimes and murders, etc., which affect all of us and are concerning to all of us, this police service must be congratulated for its level of solving relative to crime in Barbados. So I would love to give the opportunity to you, Attorney General and Commissioner of Police, to speak to us relative about the specific training that is taking place to handle sensitive matters, but also how are we dealing with the overarching solving of crime and your statistics relative to that. Thank you.
I'm glad you've agreed that the commissioner can handle some parts of that. But let me just begin. You mentioned in passing the matter of response times at the opening of your opening. There are people who seem to believe that there's I don't know how to describe it, that there's a large body of police officers who are in a place so that when you make a call, you can pluck 2 and send them off, and 3 and send them off. The police service is made up of just over 1,200 officers. They are, as you know, in different ranks. So you have a commissioner, 2 deputy commissioners, 5 assistant commissioners, and the pyramid widens at the bottom. But even within that structure, you have specialized areas. You have a bomb squad. You have a pre-deal larceny unit. You have CID. You have people who, you have the forensic specialists. So in the police service, you don't have a bulge of police officers that are available to respond immediately to everything that happens. Secondly, if the police are assisting you, for example, at a scene of crime at your house, maybe there's a death, whatever it is, while those police officers at your house attending to your needs, there are other calls coming in. Now, we have 14 police stations, and some of those police stations are not even able to respond because the airport police officers, their focus is going to be different. The ones at the port, their focus is going to be different. And those police officers have geographical areas. So when you take the entire police service and separate it out, you will understand that there isn't a corpus of people ready to field every call. And there are thousands of calls. We have begun to address that issue, and I want to mention it here, by changing how police respond to accident scenes. In every year, we used to get between 6,000 and 8,000 calls for accidents, from the smallest of fender benders to, at the very end, mass casualties, sometimes resulting in homicides. Imagine how much time that takes. And the police have to come, they have to interview people, they take measurements, all of those kinds of things, they take statements. But while police officers are responding to that incident in Checker Hall, there's something happening in another part, there's something happening in another part of the constituency, in the parish of St. Lucie, that might require attention. But the police can't say, well, boss man, I gotta leave here because something happened down there. That's not how policing works. So the matter of how police respond to incidents, sometimes they do extraordinarily well, but depending on the number of things that are happening at the same time, there are challenges. But that's why we've said police will no longer be responding to accidents unless they have a very serious kind. And that in itself has made the world of difference by freeing up police officers and make them better able to respond to incidents. And there are other initiatives that are coming, but I will allow the Commissioner to speak more specifically to the matter that you raised. Use me.
Thank you. The aspect of, in terms of dealing with issues such as domestic violence and other issues which are very sensitive, we in the police service have organized professional training for our officers. And this sensitivity and diversity training has done wonders for us in that persons have been trained in batches, and the professionals that we brought in to deliver that training for us, they have a good background and track record in addressing these matters. And persons every year, persons are exposed, persons in the organization are exposed to this level of training. And we have noticed a reduction in terms of complaints that come to us in terms of police officers being unprofessional. And that is slowly declining. And we are on a good trajectory in terms of rooting out the unprofessional behavior of officers when it comes to dealing with these issues. Now, in terms of getting these reports handled in a timely manner, as was mentioned before, there are challenges which would prevent us from acting in a speedy manner. But the thing is getting back to persons, letting them know exactly the reasons why we could not address a situation in a particular time frame. Because if we have a kind of a charter where we said, well, in 3 minutes' time we will do A, B, or C, and we do not honor that, it's to our benefit that we get back to persons, let them know the reason why this happened. But the main thing is having a complete job done where these issues are concerned. So we will continue to approach it from that level, and in time, we will get an adequate number of persons, our responders, fully trained up to deal with those issues. But the main thing is knowing what is best in responding to the report, have that high level of quality service given to those persons who are in need of that type of service.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Attorney General and Commissioner of Police. My last question, AG, relates to the judicial system. I'm not sure if you mentioned it in your opening statement, but this may be an opportunity for you to share with us and the public about the backlog and what steps have been taken by your office to improve the pace at which cases move through the judicial system. Of course, there's a saying, old adage that you as Attorney General, a learned Attorney General, would appreciate, that justice delayed is justice denied. And there's a sense that persons have to wait too long to be able to have justice in the judicial system in our country. So I want to give you the opportunity to just share with us what steps have already been taken to improve the pace at which our cases are going through the judicial system, and what other steps are envisioned that will help us to even take that to a further and more improved state.
Thank you very much for that question. So let's begin by reflecting on the fact that our judicial system is divided into divisions. We have a criminal division, we have a family division, and we have a civil division. Now let me talk firstly about the criminal division. Leader of the opposition made bold to say that appointing extra judges does not solve the problem. We never said it would. Never said that appointing extra judges would solve the problem. But when we came to government, there were only 2 judges doing criminal cases. And those 2 judges would rotate. So they would do criminal cases for part of the year, and then the next year, they go and do civil. That meant that you did not have a body of judges who were able to specialize in dealing with criminal cases. When we wrote our manifesto in 2018, we said we were going to appoint 2 additional judges. We've appointed 6 more. So we moved from 2 to a total of 8. In the year 2024, Mr. Chairman, 292 criminal cases were disposed of. Not 12 or 20 or 30. 292, an impressive number of criminal cases were disposed of. Now, we are moving through a backlog. You're not going to get through it immediately. But when you can go from 2 judges doing criminal matters to 8 judges doing criminal matters, when you can double the number of people doing prosecutions now to 16 prosecutors, and you can get rid of 292 criminal cases in 1 year, that can tell you that we are beginning to see a more efficient and a more effective system in relation to the dispatching of criminal cases. I leave the opposition to figure out if that will have an impact on the criminal justice system or not. We never said it would solve it, but we do know that this is a multifaceted issue. And if you leave one side of begging, then no matter how many times the police, and they do a good job, arrest people, if we don't get them through the other end of the system, we will have another problem. As the Minister of State said, unless you plan on keeping people in jail forever, we have to apply these solutions. In relation to the civil courts, now the funny thing is that we have been spending an inordinate amount of time, well, I shouldn't say inordinate, but because of the immediacy of the impact of criminal activity, we have been focused on the area of criminal justice reform. But we also started on the area of reform of the civil justice system as well. We appointed, the specific number slips me, but we appointed a large number of judges in the civil bench, so as to be able to deal with the family law matters and the other civil matters. For the first time, we have a full complement of Court of Appeal judges. We've always only had, the Court of Appeal at one point in time used to be 3 of the 5 High Court judges that we had. That wasn't that long ago. And since we moved to a dedicated Court of Appeal, we only had 5 judges, but there were 6 posts. For the first time, we have filled all 6 posts, allowing 2 panels of appellate judges to work at the same time. Now, to be frank, there are still going to be difficulties. There are going to be difficulties that are related to the willingness of counsel to push through matters. There are going to be challenges relating to the backlog of civil matters as well, because we've had that to address. But one of the root causes of this problem has really been how we chose judges, how we selected judges. And there's some brutal realities that we have to face. Judges are human beings, and nobody's perfect. But the old system of choosing judges was one which, and I mean no disrespect, because we've had the benefit of a lot of brilliant judges, but it was one that was not necessarily guaranteed to give us the best chance. And we decided, look, instead of just looking through the public service or the private sector bar and picking a person as a judge and hoping for the best, because that's essentially what we did for generations, We completely transformed the method of how we choose our judges. And we now have a judicial appointments committee that advertises vacancies in our judiciary all across the Commonwealth, not in Barbados, not in the Caribbean, across the Commonwealth, so that when, and believe you me, sir, we have had applicants from India, from Malaysia, from all over the common law world, applying to fill our vacancies as judges. And I believe that anybody who pays any attention to the civil bar will be able to tell you, civil bench will be able to tell you that decisions are being churned out in record time. I hope that in another year's time when we sit in this place to be able to give you better statistics, because the practice of, well, the area of judicial work is now being addressed from a far more scientific, statistical background than the way in which we're accustomed doing it. What we normally do is we say number of cases filed, number of cases heard, decisions given, and that's it. That's a very basic statistical framework. But in truth and in fact, it is very, very sophisticated, and we don't have those resources, and we now have to put those kinds of resources in place. The IDB has indicated to us that they're willing to fund for a period of 6 months a statistician out of Jamaica who specializes in judicial statistics, and they're going to fund it, and we're going to have him in Barbados for the purpose of giving us a scientific assessment of the data. But we have come a long way from where we were when this administration started.
Thank you so much. Sorry, I was actually just called you, AG. Thank you so much for the responses. I want to once again, as I began, close by congratulating the Attorney General and his office and his entire team for the impressive job that is being done to maintain peace and order in our country, from the National Peace Program and its interventions to prevent persons from moving into a life of crime, through to the work being done at the Barbados Police Service to reorient it and to make it more citizen-centric, all the way through to the reforms that are being done at the judiciary. I want to say that I believe that the Office of the Attorney General is doing a phenomenal job.
And they also want to say, Honourable Member,
Pardon me?
your time is...
Thank you so much. So thank you so much for the time, Mr. Chair.
Hi, Mr. Chairman, I beg to move that you do now report progress to His Honour the Speaker and beg leave to sit again.
The question is that I do not report progress to His Honour the Speaker and beg for leave to sit again. All honourable members in favour, say aye. Aye. Honourable members against, say no. Methinks the ayes have it.
The chairman has reported progress and requests leave to sit again. Honourable Leader, Government Business.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I beg to move the suspension of the House until 12:30 p.m.
The question is that this honourable chamber be suspended until 12:30 p.m. All those honourable members in favour, please say aye. Those against, please say no. We think the ayes have it. This honourable chamber stands suspended until 12:30 p.m.
Yeah, the chairman.
This sitting is resumed. We return to Standing Finance Committee.
This Honourable House is now in Standing Finance Committee. Honourable Member for St. Thomas.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. A blessed good afternoon to everyone. I want to add my 5 cents worth, sir, to the discussion here today, but I particularly want to highly congratulate the Honourable Attorney General and his team for me, the excellent work that I see they're doing, where few Barbadians would even want to trespass on the outside of their homes to be able to come out to serve with the challenges that we are facing. And it's not only a Barbadian situation. I watch Synergy almost every night, and it pains my heart with the home invasions and the murders and so on. So please accept my highest congratulations, sir, you and your team, and the people of Barbados, because we know you're making a tremendous effort to make the difference. I want to refer, sir, to many years ago, many meaning about 15, 20 years ago, when I witnessed what transpired with the police service, then the police force, and the program that was put in place within our schools for the mentorship of children. The DARE program was an excellent program, and then the community policing, that too added. And having been in the school system for more than a quarter of a century, and seeing that injection of services for free for our young people, it blessed my heart. The children were so enthused and so engaged, and it was not only to chat with the police officers. Some of them took his hands. Some of them held a little cane, I'm not so sure what it is called, in their hands, to be able, and I saw so many of my former students choose to go to join the Royal Barbados Police Force then, now the police service. I too, Mr. Chairman, had an interest as a young girl as well. I so wanted to join the police service, but I know my personality, and somebody will hit me and then I will get into trouble. So I veered away from that into the teaching system that has given me the excellent opportunity to interact with people at all levels. I want to say particularly that the program that was done by the police officers within our schools across Barbados, coupled with that DARE program, caused numerous, or I would say thousands of our children in Barbados to develop a respect for policing and to want to be able to offer their services and to interact in activities where they knew that they were safe and the element of trust was developed. And therefore I want to find out through you, sir, and the Honourable Attorney General and the Honourable Minister of State, if they can, what plans are there now that parenting is not taking place in the way that we know, or supervision of our children in the schools and on the streets? What plans are there, if any, for this government at this particular juncture in our history to re-implement or to come up with other ideas where children in our primary school from nursery right through to secondary will get that exposure so that they get the confidence and the trust in police officers to be willing to want to work with them and later perhaps to become police officers and persons who will work directly with them in order to make a difference. I would like, sir, to put that one on the table first. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Member for St. Thomas. I'm so sorry that you did not go into policing, but I'm happy to have you here amongst us. I'm going to ask the Commissioner to address your questions.
Thank you. If I would look at the whole picture where that is concerned, I would say that we in the police service have a very keen eye on identifying at-risk students at schools. And because of that, we have targeted specific schools before we go generally, because there are some schools that be more challenging than other schools. So there is a pecking order that we will work on, and we are engaging the teachers, the guidance counselors, those persons inside the school who can identify those persons who are in need of that intervention in terms of dealing with conflicts, dealing with anger management and things like that. So we in the police service identify those persons at a very early stage. We want to get in there when the minds are so much impressionable, to have the positive impressions placed in those persons, whereby as they go through the various systems in the educational structure, that they will know how to deal with issues of violence. Because if I would mention that only recently what transpired at a particular organization, in that unfortunate, but that is something that the interventions, not only the police, but other persons who have a role to play in reducing acts of violence must step on board and come to the fore and help address those issues. So it is, yes, we, the police, the teachers, and all those responsible persons in the communities that will come and help deal with this situation. So it is an ongoing process that we have to address and keep addressing continuously.
I also, sir, wish, if you allow me, sir, my other question, sir, or is the Attorney General? Yes, sir. I also want to find out how could persons like myself, meaning an ordinary citizen in this respect, and other people in the general public, be able to reach out directly to the police officers, that the communities can get opportunities to be able to see something, say something, knowing that the confidence is there when they report incidents and so on, that they recognize that then they are not afraid, because I'm seeing again what's happening across the Caribbean and the rest of the world. And people want to say something, but if they feel that there are measures there that will cause them to be identified as the persons who are the squealers, I believe that you might be able to explain to us some of the plans that you have, because I believe that we can do more as citizens once the confidentiality is put in place and up front.
The whole aspect of reassurance to members of the public, not only for us, but also working with organizations such as Crime Stoppers, that is a very readily interaction with us where that is concerned. So yes, we can speak, not normally can, but we normally speak with persons who have that fear of divulging information. The main thing is to get their buy-in and get their confidence in us as the organization, that they can feel comfortable that when they give information to us, they'll be satisfied that the high level of confidentiality will be there, and they can place their confidence in our officers. And mind you, we look at the best quality officers to deal with those sensitive issues, especially involving the youth. So we have the cadre of persons that we rely on, and it is working very well for us, so we will continue on that track.
Thank you, sir. My final query, sir, is to do with the plans to recruit more police officers in the system. And I'm saying that as a layperson, that's why I'm speaking now, living in the village where we grew up for so many years, and the relationships as well with police officers, as I said earlier, were really close. Because I live near the Straight D police station, every police, the station sergeant, everybody, we interacted many years ago. I want to find out what plans there will be. And I think it is the Honourable Prime Minister and the members of Cabinet who will have to make that decision. Most people are saying, I'll be glad to join the police force, or the police service. But however, the salary, that is something that perhaps we could discuss, because people feel that the salaries are too low for the kinds of exposure that they have when, of course, we hear so much about the guns and so. And it's a pity, and this is just a side comment, that the honourable member of the opposition, the leader, is not aware that an old man called Nard was shot right on the exterior of this building a few years back when the Democratic Labour Party was the government. I want to know what can we do to be able to improve the salaries and to attract more persons in the same way Barbados trained and send them down to Cayman Island and Montserrat and so in the past. We want them here, but what plans are there to be able to recruit them so that the confidence is developed?
Thank you, Member for St. Thomas. Let me begin by saying, though, that a very positive phenomena has been taking place. When we were last in government, we had a significant, well, by significant, I don't mean large numbers, but every time you lose 3, 4, 5 police officers in a force our size, it was a significant thing. And we used to lose officers on an annual basis to Bermuda, BVI, Turks and Caicos. And that phenomena has pretty much ground to a halt. We are not seeing Barbados police officers leaving the police service to go to work in other jurisdictions in the way in which they did 15 or so years ago. Police, though, are like any other career field. People will look to change careers. I have in my chambers, SG's office, I have former teachers who've become lawyers. So you have police officers, some going to accounting, some going to other kinds of businesses, some going to farming, some going to law. So there will always be some kind of attrition in any career field, but losing police officers to other jurisdictions no longer happens. Our ability to retain police officers is of paramount importance to us. And I remind you that in our budget speech last year, the Prime Minister made 3 specific interventions into the area of policing that are intended and have had the effect of improving the professional circumstances and benefits of police officers. Let me remind you. One of them had to do with paying detectives a special allowance by virtue of that post. You know, we think of police officers as individuals who show up for work at 8 o'clock and leave at 4 o'clock in the evening. They don't. I've mentioned in another place that if an investigation starts, that officer has to stay with that investigation until whatever time it is finished. Detective work is hard work. It is sometimes dangerous work as well. And therefore, we had a number of individuals who were working as detectives, but it was important to keep those detectives in the detective field because by a quirk of how the system works, they could actually earn more money by going back into uniform. So we now have an allowance for detectives, which will see them taking home more money in their paychecks at the end of the month and having more job satisfaction. We also increased the number of police officers who are able to benefit from the Public Officers Traveling Loan Scheme, what was called the PALTA. So we now have more police officers. We've expanded the range of officers who can benefit from that scheme. The other measure that we implemented has to do with the establishment of a rank of someone called a senior constable. You will have police officers, and regrettably, because the policing age of retirement is the same as the public service, so let's say 67 years old, you can have individuals who retire from the police service at the age of 67 as constable. Apart from the fact that their health profile would not allow them to run behind a pickpocket at Christmas time in town, it was obvious that a person who has been a police constable for so long has had the benefit of wisdom garnered by work, not necessarily by exams, but by virtue of his experience or her experience on the ground. That officer will have a tremendous wealth of experience, sometimes more than those individuals who have all the book learning. And therefore, we've established a rank of officer called senior constable. So in significant ways, we have tried to improve the working terms and conditions of police officers and also to improve the morale. We've made significant inroads into dealing with their accommodation. We have a program in place to maintain all of the police stations. It's going to take a little while, but we're working on that. The CID, the linchpin of any police force. We've had challenges with them where they were accommodated, and now they're somewhat scattered. So the government has acquired the Geddes Grant building in town, and that Geddes Grant building, it is not only central, it is perfect, and we will see the CID and one or two other specialized agencies in the police service moving into that facility, and that in itself will improve the terms and conditions of how police work. The regrading exercise for the public service, I believe it has started. And the Prime Minister has made it clear. In fact, she gave me the power to tell the police association that not only will they get these early harvest benefits, but that the regrading exercise, when it is completed, should see adjustments being made to their pay relative to all of the other factors. And therefore, when that regrading exercise is completed, I believe that we will see that they will have better reason to be happy. But then there are the other softer things. We have the HOPE project to provide housing for individuals. And HOPE has been mandated to treat as priority applicants members of the police service and the nursing service, and as well as the teaching service. So there are times, Honourable Member, when protective services, yes. There are times, Honourable Member, when you would like to be able to let go your hand and say, well, we're going to improve your terms and conditions by increasing your salary and doing various things, paying you at a premium. But that's not how government works. But what we have done in every instance is to take a series of calculated measures that are intended to improve the terms and conditions. But also in relation to acting. We had hundreds, well, I don't want to I don't want to use hyperbole, but in the ranks of sergeants of the police service, in the ranks of superintendents, and we had a large number of individuals acting. And the direction was given. We can't say who to promote, but the direction was given to the Protective Services Commission to focus on the matter of acting positions in the police service, and in fact across all of the protective service agencies, so that individuals who are acting, who have been acting in posts for a considerable period of time, if there's nothing against them, that they should be appointed to the post. So there are a number of fronts on which we have tackled the issue of making sure that terms and conditions of our police officers are as appropriate as they can be in all of the circumstances. Is there more that we can do? Perhaps, as I said, we're focusing on their conditions, the working conditions, how the men and women are housed to work. But there's another discussion that has already begun to take place. That discussion has to do with the retirement age of police officers. It is not, we are not at a place where you can say that a policy position has been fully fleshed out. But the discussions are in a very early stage. It may not be common knowledge, but members of the Barbados Defense Force If you are below a certain rank, I think it's probably captain or something like that, your compulsory retirement age is 45. Above that, you can go to 50. Chief of Staff could retire at, I think, 55, and then you can apply for extensions. Now, I think the reason that soldiers have always been treated that way is because they're soldiers. And it is anticipated that their existence would be one of being in a stance ready for war. That has happily not been our reality. But what you do have is one important branch of our protective services retiring at a far earlier age, while the police service is retiring, their retirement age is 67. So the commissioner sitting next to me is going to work for a far longer period than his counterpart at the BDF. Of course, he's in fine shape, so he could handle it. But we have to make sure that there are relativities that are addressed. And that is one of the areas, and I said earlier in the chamber today that the health profile of the average police officer is much worse than the average person in any other profession in Barbados. So this is a discussion that has begun. In terms of recruitment, I think you mentioned recruitment. Policing, unfortunately, has not been as attractive for young people as before. I remember as a young boy, the fellows said, Babylon! and immediately there's a negative image conjured up of policing. While in decades before, the police were held in much higher esteem and much higher regard. We have had numbers of individuals applying for the police service, and I can give you some of those statistics. In 2020, we had 381 persons applying for the police service. 188 were male, 193 were female. In 2021, we had 286 people applying for the police service. Of that 286, 133 were male, 153 were females. In 2022, we had 132 applying, 68 males, 64 females. In 2023, 197, 87 were male, 110 were female. In 2024, we had 163 applicants, 88 females and 75 males. That tells us a number of things. One, we are, I guess if you apply the rough average, you would say you got about 200 people applying for the police service every year. Most of them are females. We probably have to ask the sociologists why that is, but that is a discussion for another day. But unfortunately, the police training school, as it is physically made up, is made up to accommodate more male recruits than female recruits. I think the ratio is probably 2 to 1. So we have dormitory space for just about 20-something female recruits, while the number of females applying to join the police service and being actually accepted for the service could actually outstrip males. How do we address that? We are building dormitories to accommodate an additional 60 recruits, so that those 60 recruits, we will now have space to accept more females, to accept what the market is offering. Because if more females are applying, there's no basis for artificially reducing the numbers of females in favor of males. Across the world, you'll see that professions have now become almost very unisex. So in the United States, you find female Marines fighting alongside male Marines. And our female police officers are doing a very good job. So we are increasing our capacity to recruit more females if the market is offering. Just a few years ago, I remember going to a police passing out parade. They still have them. I think it was probably around 2021. And the number of individuals, the commissioner can correct me on the year, number of individuals passing out was 18. Only 18. Only 18 individuals joined the police service that year. Happily, as a result of an aggressive public relations campaign and an aggressive recruitment drive, last year I think we had 57 officers passing out. The year before that, I think we had 60. So we've actually seen the numbers increasing. But bear in mind that while you are having an increase in recruitment, it is not a large enough increase to take care of the 290 deficit that we have. But moreover, we also have to factor in that individuals are also retiring. Individuals regrettably are dying. Individuals are changing careers. Individuals are having to leave the service because of medical challenges. So the recruitment rate slightly outstrips the attrition rate, but not in significant enough numbers to be able to allow us to say that we can replenish the numbers of police officers in a short possible time. My final comment, I will save for later.
Thank you. Thank you, Honourable Member for St. Thomas. Honourable Leader of the Opposition, I give you the opportunity.
3 questions at this point, Your Honor.
Yes, you can.
I'm obliged, sir.
You ask the question and then you can have 3 supplementary follow-up questions.
Yes, thank you very much, sir. This is directed, Your Honor, to the learned Attorney General, since on principle, I do not direct questions directly to the delegation. That is a matter for the learned Attorney General, if he so wishes to delegate. And of course, he's accompanied by his minister in the ministry. And the same principle will apply there too. To the learned Attorney General, I'm looking at page 78 of the larger document. And my attention is drawn to number 314. And this is, of course, the estimates as they pertain to the National Crime Prevention Program, which we have spoken much about today. Page 78 of the estimates, the larger volume. And it reads, Subprogram 0263, National Crime Prevention Program. And there are a number of categories listed there. Those categories begin with 102 other personal emoluments. I'm not interested in that. I will take my respondents, both of my respondents, down those categories, and we will come to 226, professional services. After professional services, we come to grants to individuals. I will ask now the learned Attorney General and/or his minister whether those individuals are included in those numbers of persons whom the Attorney General described this morning as, and I quote, being involved in crime. I'm not going to extend it to gun-toting vagabonds, which is the language that the Attorney General used. I will not be so emotive in this question. I will restrict my question as to whether these grants to individuals pertain to persons actively involved in crime. And while you locate the answer, the estimates, the approved estimates for 2024-25 are stated, and the revised estimates are also stated. I will leave that to you, to your discretion, your being plural, as to whether you wish to disclose to the public the amounts in those grants to individuals, but the public is now interested in knowing whether those individuals include persons actively involved in crime according to this official document. I await your answer, sir. Sirs.
The answer to that question is no.
It does not.
It
Good.
does not.
Good. Now, your subordinate minister, and I hope he doesn't mind me using the word subordinate, that is only for administrative purposes. Your subordinate minister made a reference, or you, I think, I think it was the subordinate minister, to one of the dailies. And yes, Minister, the honorable member for the city, said, look at the dailies on Fridays. Now, let us look at a particular daily on Friday. Recently, I think it was the month of December, late last year. And there were 4 young men on the front page of that daily newspaper who complained that pursuant to a transaction that they had with the government was delinquent in its obligation further to an agreement to pay them monies. Now, this is a matter of public record. And the subordinate minister in this ministry has invited this country to consider a Friday daily, the Friday dailies. I now draw attention to this Friday daily, and I'm grateful to the Nation newspaper for what they did. And the entire country is grateful to the Nation newspaper for what they did. As I said, it's a matter of public record. Is it a fact that this government entered into an arrangement with those 4 young men as stated pursuant to this National Peace Program?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The answer to that would be no. I don't know if we could actually refer and get into the article, because I know we're not supposed to refer to newspapers like that, but with your permission, Chair, I would like to clarify that the Friday Daily made no mention of any promises by government. It was actually the Saturday Post, which was trying to extrapolate what happened on Friday. I was fully briefed by the Inspire Leadership Solution that I mentioned earlier, who are which is really the organization that deals with this aspect of it. And they have assured me that they never made any promises of financial assistance to any individuals. However, what they did say in working with individuals similar to the program the Attorney General referenced, Chicago CRI, Creating Real Economic Destiny, one of the methodologies that they use is to invite persons who are predisposed to crime, not actively involved in crime, but predisposed to crime, or those that are under the rehabilitation pillar, to give them opportunities through training, through facilitation, through business proposals, helping them to open bank accounts, helping them to open insurance, etc. And they told me that at no time did they promise them any money, pay them any money, or promise them any financial assistance. I think what they discussed with them, Mr. Chair, is financial empowerment through training and opportunities in the future if they turn from a life of crime.
I thank you. We can then take it, and I assume you read the article, and you've answered in the negative. We can then take it, beg your pardon, that those young men were misleading the public by the content of that story. Honorable member for the city, this is an exchange between the two of us. If you need further assistance from Christchurch East, let us adjourn and bring him. I have asked Your Honor, the chair, I have asked a direct question to and of a very polite honorable member for the city. And he is about to
Honorable
answer.
Leader of the Opposition, therefore, give him the opportunity to answer.
I wish he would be given that opportunity by the honorable member for
Thank you,
Christchurch
Mr.
East,
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
who distracted the gentleman.
Honorable Leader of the Opposition.
Sorry, Mr. You understand? I think I understand.
There is commotion.
Mr.
Bring the
Chair, I
paper.
don't believe, I think the honorable member asked the question. I would like the opportunity to answer.
Yes,
in a-
let me
in a
repeat
in a
it. Let me
dispassionate
repeat
way.
it so that you wouldn't be
Honorable
confused.
Leader of the Opposition,
Yes.
you do not need to repeat it. I think the honorable member is quite clear.
So he understands that the question, Your Honor, is whether
just give
those
him
young
the
men were
opportunity.
misleading the
He
public.
is quite clear on that, honorable member. Give him the opportunity to respond.
Mr. Chair, I don't believe that anybody was seeking to mislead. I think what happens with the use of language,
No,
particularly
I beg your pardon, sir.
You want to tell me how to
I
answer?
think the honorable member is misunderstanding.
Honorable Leader of the
question.
Opposition, you cannot interpret for the honorable member
Yes,
for the
but I'm
city.
clarifying, Your
Just
Honor.
give
I think
him
I'm
the
entitled to
just
clarify
give
the
him.
question.
I've ruled, honorable member. Give him the opportunity to respond. just like you require, or you often, I mean, you need to be heard in silence. Let him be heard in silence.
Guided, sir. Guided, sir. And I am seeking, I let them applaud. You don't really applaud a person in the chair, you know. Just tell
Mr.
them
Chair,
that it discloses, by applauding your ruling, they're disclosing that there's
Honorable-
possible bias on
honorable
your
member,
part. Please
honorable leader
advise
of the
honorable members
opposition.
that you never applaud a ruling of the chair because the inference is that the chair is biased in your favor. Tell them that. Tell them that. They don't understand it. Tell them.
Honorable Leader of
You
the
never
Opposition.
applaud a ruling of the chair.
Honorable member
It
of the
is an
Opposition.
insult to the chair.
Would you please give the honorable member
On a
to
point of order,
respond?
on a point of order, sir, the honorable leader of the opposition, standing committee,
He's
the
not
honorable leader
party
of
to this,
opposition
sir. He
is
not-
misleading
the honorable
this
member
chamber.
is not party to this.
I was one of the persons thumping, and in no way was I intending to convey any disrespect
It
to
isn't
the
what
chair.
the honorable
or
member
say-
intends. It is the effect. You do not applaud the chair.
But did you not?
The inference is that the chair is biased. Don't argue that.
There was no suggestion
You
from
can't
this
kill
side
me,
that was
you
the case.
Honorable
You can't kill
Leader
me.
of the Opposition, I have given a
You can't
directive,
kill me.
I have ruled in this. Would you please
You can set up
give
your face
the
like Hurricane
honorable
Elsa.
member
You can't
for
do me nothing.
Honorable Leader of the Opposition, my next move will be to ask the Marshal to come and remove you, Honorable Leader. Let the proceedings continue. I have ruled on the matter, and I expect that you will abide
What
by
is
the
your
ruling.
ruling, sir?
I ask you to give the honorable member for the city the
Yes.
opportunity to
Yes.
respond.
Yes, Your Honor. Tell them to stop applauding you. You don't applaud a chair.
Honorable member for the city.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. I would like to move from the emotive to the motive. As we've all agreed in this house that crime is a very,
Motive to the, I'm not here.
move from the emotive
Yes.
to motive.
Oh, to motive.
Yes.
Much obliged.
We agree that crime is a very serious matter. And I regret some PME that we have to reduce it to what it has been reduced to, Mr. Chair. But I was saying that when we look at language, I think it's more about the use of language than the motive of trying to mislead. I do not believe that the journalists, those who would have been interviewed or who took up and did the second story off of the first story that was satisfactory to my mind. I think that being told that you may get, through training, you can get financial empowerment can be easily misinterpreted that you are being promised financial assistance. And throughout this entire program, and I think it's sad because it looks like an easy mark, so people go after. But throughout this entire program, to answer the honorable member, we've mixed up a peace agreement with a peace program. Not understanding that the peace agreement and the peace program is not fungible. It is two different things, completely. The peace program is the overall thing, where the peace agreement is 1% of what the National Crime Prevention Program does. We've mixed up crime fighting with crime prevention. We've mixed up crime with homicide. So many times, even us in here, we say crime going up because homicide is going up, but crime overall has gone down, where homicide has gone up. So I think it's just, honorable member, being genuine. I think we're mixing up language.
Yes.
You know, sometimes you may tell somebody, I can try to get back to you, and they say, no, you promise. We just insert words and use them loosely. So I do believe, when Inspire briefs me and say that they do not promise any financial assistance or to pay anybody, that you can get financial empowerment through training and coming out of a life of crime, that is genuinely what they meant.
I see. So you being a good student of language will now wish to make the distinction between financial assistance and financial empowerment. And we now understand that the offer of financial empowerment as contradistinct from financial assistance was made. We can agree on that. It was in the form of empowerment. No, you want to answer? Yeah, I'm leading to the question now. No, that's the question. Are you clarifying for the sake of this honorable house and
Mr.
this
Chair,
public?
yes, please.
That the answer is yes. That financial empowerment was offered and not financial assistance. And you said yes. Thank you very much.
Lunch? No?
May I proceed, sir? May I proceed, sir? Or they want water?
Do you have a...
They want mercy or water?
You have a
No, I'm asking about y'all, not the speaker, not the chairman of committees.
Honorable Leader of the Opposition, proceed.
I thank you so much, sir. Now I'm back to the learned Attorney General. At the same table on page 78, and I'm not going to state the numbers, let the public guess for the time being, there will be a time and place. At category 315, my earlier question was 314 grants to individuals. We've now had it clarified that those individuals receive not financial assistance, but financial empowerment. Let us therefore go to 315, I beg your pardon, which says grants to non-profit organizations. May I proceed, sir? May I proceed, sir?
I did not stop you.
I want you to stop the voices that compete with me.
Honorable Leader of the Opposition, please utilize the time that you've been given.
Thank you very much, sir.
Please utilize...
When you hear them, quiet them, sir. I beg you. You hearing them?
Honorable Leader of the Opposition, proceed, please.
Thank you, sir. Grants to non-profit organizations. And I'm going to follow the language advanced by this honorable team. Do those non-profit organizations have names, corporate names?
All organizations are not corporate, sir. I think you would appreciate that. So the King's Trust, which received $300,000 from the program,
Yes.
is not a body corporate.
Yes.
The St. James Methodist Church that received $350,000 from the
Yes.
program under grants to non-profit organizations is
Yes.
not body corporate.
Yes.
James Street,
Yes.
the Boy Scouts Association that has just received $250,000. Crime Stoppers received $150,000.
During 23-24, give us those figures again, please. Your colleagues were very keen to hear the names. Let us hear the numbers. Yes, could you repeat the numbers if you don't mind, Honorable Attorney General?
I'm happy to repeat what I just gave you.
Thank you very much.
I believe the figure for St. James Methodist Church was in the region of, James Street Methodist Church was in the region of $350,000.
Yes.
The King's Trust would have received in the region of $300,000.
Thank you.
Crime Stoppers, $150,000.
Yes.
The Boy Scouts Association in this current financial year received $250,000.
Thank you.
So your question was whether they are corporate.
No. I asked if you can provide corporate names, and you've done so.
Well, fine.
And with an excellent memory, unless you're looking at your screen. I commend your memory. 6, 8. And Honorable Attorney General, were these payments made during year 2023-24?
St. James Methodist Church was paid, James Street Methodist Church, I don't know why I keep confusing you two.
Well, you don't stop annoying the man. Huh?
James Street Methodist Church was paid during 23-24. King's Trust was also paid during 23-24.
Don't let them distract you.
You don't worry about whether I'm distracted or not.
Thank you very much.
You just...
Now, I'm going to take you back. We're still on this page.
Honorable member, you have exceeded your 3 supplementary questions. Are you aware of that? You can come again later. You have exceeded your 3 according to the standing orders.
They're applauding you again, sir. The Attorney General wants some more questions.
I'm here to answer all the questions you
Precisely.
have.
But his
Honorable Leader of the Opposition, your time is up.
So I can come back later.
questions,
Yes.
You can come back.
Thank you very much, sir.
According to the standing order, which 67.3,
Yes.
which I invite you to read.
You're very fair and kind, sir.
Mr. Chairman, I beg to move that you do not report progress to His Honor the Speaker and beg leave to sit again.
The question is that I do not report progress to His Honor the Speaker. Beg for leave to sit again. All honorable members in favor, say aye. Honorable members against, say no. Methinks the ayes have it.
It appears they may have to come out here. Just appears they may have to come out here before my time. Honorable Leader, Government Business.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I beg to move the suspension of the House until 2:45 p.m.
The question is that this honorable chamber be suspended until 2:45 p.m. All those honorable members in favor, please say aye. Those against, please say no. Me think the ayes have it. This Honourable Chairman stands suspended until 2:45 p.m.